But I got to say, the reason I was playing that particular piece that is on your Instagram page, the reason I played it just then is because that was the first bit of music of yours that I stumbled across. And I can't remember now how I actually found your page. I think you might have made a comment on someone's post, and I saw the name Brother Jacob's Jams. Oops, Elder Ceff nearly lost his phone then. I saw this comment from Brother Jacob's Jams, and I thought, oh, that sounds interesting. Who's Brother Jacobs, you know? And so I went to your page and I saw you at the keyboard there, and I thought, I'm going to click on that. I love music.
Yeah.
I love music, and I started listening to it, and I'm thinking, what tune's that? Oh, it's Nearer My God to Thee.
Right.
In a version that'll wake me up instead of putting me to sleep. You know, it was awesome.
Right. Well, I'm glad you liked it.
I love it, and I think I made the comment to you when we first spoke. If you did a whole album of hymns like that, I would buy it.
I know, it would wake you up in the morning. That's the point.
Absolutely, yeah. And then I listened to some of your songs from Speaking from the Dust.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, well, this is different, because that's after hearing your version of Nearer My God to Thee, I sort of expected something like that, but then I got something completely different, which is awesome as well. So look, we'll get on to talking about your music and your book and everything else soon.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say welcome to start with. You know, it's great to have you on here. We've got a few people joining in as well, which is really nice. I always start off, Kyle. I'm always interested in people's childhoods, and because childhood is the foundation of whatever happens later. I think and I think from our initial chat, I think I remember you saying that you grew up in an LDS family. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Yeah. So look, I'm just going to hand it over to you for a bit. Tell us about life growing up in an LDS family through to going on your mission, perhaps, cover that period of time for us, and just to give us a bit of an idea of the foundation of Brother Kyle Jacobs.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I've been following you on Instagram, and I'm like, man, I love this podcast. So I'm really honored to be on with you. So I really feel blessed to have grown up in the church. I come from pioneer heritage. My lineage goes back to Samuel Smith, so the brother of Joseph Smith. So, and that's on my mom's side. On my dad's side, we go through the Mormon Battalion. It really just right there at the foundation of the church. So really blessed to have that heritage. But I grew up in America, the state of New Mexico. And that's in the Southwest, and it's kind of the mission field a little bit, because there's not a lot of members of the church in New Mexico. It's not like Arizona, where I'm at now, or Utah, and so I think I was one of maybe 4 or 5 LDS kids graduating in high school. So it was a really neat thing, because my parents, they raised us in the gospel, and they were and they are very stalwart, but it was very practical, I guess is the right word to say, because we were surrounded by folks who were not members of the church, and we needed to know how to get on with that. We needed to know how to be able to mingle with them and learn with them, and it was a really neat experience, because it helped teach me how to relate to, or try to relate to, really all walks of life. And so as we spoke about the gospel in our home, it was a little bit different. We weren't necessarily great at having like family home evening every Monday night and scripture study every morning. But the gospel was just kind of within the threads of everything that we did. My dad would take me home teaching, and we would go do service, and we would, again, it was kind of neat being in a community that wasn't full of LDS folks, because we got to serve the community and kind of shine our light and be missionaries there. So so that was a really neat thing. So, you know, going up through high school and learning from my parents and from everybody around me, there was a really good camaraderie as well with the people. You know, I grew up, you know, from 7th grade on, I was in a branch, not a ward. I was in a district, not a stake. And so really tight-knit group, and it helped like gain a lot of loyalty to the church. Like I don't know the best way to say that, but it was I was very proud of my heritage and very proud of the beliefs that we stood for, and I enjoyed kind of standing out a little bit. You know, being one of just a handful of people in my high school, I kind of relished that opportunity. And you know, I grew up always wanting to go on a mission, knowing that I was going to go on a mission. And so when the time came, there was really no hesitation there. And I was blessed to get called to the Nevada, Las Vegas West mission. So here I was thinking, you know, I'm going to get called to Russia or Australia, you know, because I'm in the Southwest of America, and I just really hop one state over to go to Las Vegas. And it was such a neat experience for me, because I think I went on my mission knowing that the church was true, but I viewed my mission as a duty more than anything else. It wasn't something that was like, you know, I wasn't guilt tripped into going on a mission or anything like that. I didn't feel a bunch of pressure to go on my mission. Not necessarily, at least not a bad amount of pressure, but I always knew that that's what I was going to do. And so, you know, serving in that mission was quite unique. You know, I did about a year in the city of Las Vegas, and then a year up in northern Nevada, and you know, Lake Tahoe and Reno and some of those areas there that are just beautiful. So got to see all sorts of neat things and experience new things to help really apply the gospel a lot more.
Okay. Well, look, thanks for that. That's really interesting. Now, question without notice here. Sorry. Well, where did, because music is a major part of your life, and we'll hear a bit more about what happened with that after your mission in a minute. But when did the music thing start with you? When did you discover that you had a musical talent, and when did you start learning piano and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so way back, you know, in my home, we always had music going on, and what was really neat is we had a lot of diverse music. So my dad was always listening to classic rock. You know, we had Led Zeppelin going on. We had Chicago, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. You know, and my mom would bring in the Beatles and Motown and things of that nature. And then, of course, we had the Tabernacle Choir. My dad really introduced me, and all of us boys, at a very young age, to jazz. So we would listen to Dave Brubeck and, you know, and a few other of those really, really good jazz guys. And, you know, so the piano was always playing from as far as I can remember. But I believe I was 7 or 8 years old. I think I was 7. And I was watching the movie Groundhog Day with Bill Murray. And in that movie, he plays a Rachmaninoff song, and he makes it really jazzy, and he makes it really fun. And watching Bill Murray play the piano when I was 7 years old, that sparked it in me, where I'm like, I want to do that. And so I was really, really fortunate. My mom wanted to foster, well, mom and dad both fostered that love of music. And when I said I wanted to play piano, we had a piano, you know, that is old as dirt, goes back 2 or 3 generations in my family. And there was zero hesitancy on my parents' part to sign me up for piano lessons. And my piano teacher was just 4 or 5 houses down the road. And so really from seven years old all the way through the end of high school, I had that classical training, but my piano teacher was really good. He knew that I liked jazz, I liked blues. So he'd expose me to those things and give me those pieces to be able to play. He would take me to competitions. You know, being a boy, I really wanted to compete. And You know, so he was such a great teacher that helped foster those desires in me. So it was about, when I was 11 or 12, when I really decided that music was what I was going to pursue throughout my career, throughout my life. That it wasn't just something that I enjoyed, but you know, that talent was kind of revealed as I picked up on it those first couple of years, and really enjoyed it. So about 11 years old, 12 years old, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna be a rock star when I grow up, and that's it. Like, and no one can tell me any different. This is what's happening.
That's interesting. So you weren't one of these child prodigies that was sitting at the piano at 2 years old playing.
No,
It came along
and
a
I'll
little.
tell you, I'll tell you, when I remember I was 15, 16 years old, and being a teenager, I thought I was pretty hot stuff. And on like Ellen or Oprah or one of those shows, there was like this 4-year-old kid just going crazy, and I was so mad. He's 4 years old and he's playing stuff that I can't even play. That made me so upset.
Wow. That's interesting. And just talking of music and sound, Kyle, I just want to do a quick sound check. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Is my voice coming through okay? Because just recently I've adopted these little hearing aids.
Oh.
And so I just realised that I have these hooked in through my sound system of my phone, and I just wanted to check that the sound was coming through loud and clear. It means I can hear you loud and clear, and
Yeah.
I can hear the hi-hats, you know,
Yeah. There you go.
as well as the bass.
Yeah.
So that's important. Thanks for that. I just wanted to check on that, make sure it was okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so. And you went on your mission, and tell me, and I didn't ask you this before, but did playing music and being on a mission, did that sort of fit in? Was your talent used as a missionary?
Oh, all the time. You know, what's neat is when you play the piano, there's a piano in every church, every church out there, at least in America. So I got to play quite a bit. I was always asked to be the piano player for district meetings and zone meetings, and so it was neat because I was able to still at least play and kind of quench my thirst for being able to play. So that was always fun.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier about, you know, going on a mission. It was sort of the routine sort of thing to do. You had a testimony. And, you know, a lot of people think that just because you have a testimony, well, you must be converted. But testimony and conversion are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
How converted to the gospel do you think you were before you went on your mission and by the time you finished your mission?
You know, I'll tell you, it's a great question, because I've looked back on it in my current level of conversion and have been tempted to have regret, to say, man, I really wish I could go back to my mission knowing what I know now. But I think that's pretty common, honestly. So I felt that I had a testimony, and honestly, I've been really blessed with really good spiritual experiences. And again, my heritage has really helped me to get to a point, even as a teenager, that I never really questioned it. I never really doubted. There was nothing nagging at me at all that said, hey, this may not be true. Or you know, you better check out the Book of Mormon again because there was inconsistencies. Like I never felt that. But to your point, you know, that was a testimony. Actual conversion is different, and to me, I think conversion is exemplified by your actions and what your heart and desires are. And I can't say that my conversion was very solid when I left on my mission. Again, it felt like a duty. I felt like I was doing the right thing. I wanted to do it. but you know, it was a part of the stepping. It was a part of the ladder for me, and something that I knew that was going to happen. But true conversion, where, you know, being able to go out and say, I love the Savior so much that I want everyone to know about him. I'm going to show everybody what it's like to be a disciple of the Savior. That level of conversion, I didn't have. So
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for, again, growing up and always planning on going on a mission, because I learned so much while I was out on the mission. Really, when the rubber meets the road and you get to serve people, you know. And one thing I was reflecting on it, and I thought, you know, my mission, the main thing that it taught me was how to love people. And love is one of those really foundational aspects of true conversion, because that's where you want to be able to serve others, and you know, your heart is really in the right place. And so that was the main lesson that I learned on my mission that really kind of helped propel me into deeper conversion.
Okay, that's interesting, Kyle. Now,
We've talked about your mission and your conversion and your sort of deepening conversion. Tell us what happened about your dream to become a rock star when you came home from your mission.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, you know, the mission, I was definitely one of Heavenly Father's children who thought I could plan every step of my entire life. And, you know, the plan was I would come home from my mission. I would, you know, start a band with my brothers. You know, we played a little bit before my mission, but I knew we'd have to put that on hold. I would come home, I'd start the band with the brothers. We'd pay our dues, you know, but eventually gain a lot of momentum, and we would get big. You know, we'd end up in, you know, 5-10 years winning Grammys and selling out amphitheaters. You know, that was the grand plan. And we followed that for a good long while. So I came home and then ended up going to a school in Texas to learn how to mix and to record music, because I wanted that knowledge. I wanted to be able to kind of do it yourself when it comes to like putting together our demos. So I went to Texas, learned all that, and then moved over here to Arizona, where my older brother lived, and my younger brother went on his mission and then came back and joined us. And we played in our band for quite a while. You know, we were jumping into clubs and bars, and you know, we'd play a couple of YSA activities, and it was all really, really good. You know, I ended up meeting my wife in a recording studio. She was there just to kind of watch us, and we fell in love and got married, and everything was going according to plan. And then, you know, one thing led to another, and we got invited to play a show in Los Angeles, California, and it was a big show. And really, in the valley where I'm at, we're in the Phoenix Valley. The music industry isn't really that big here, or at least in the old model of making it big. Phoenix was not a good spot. And so we were playing smaller areas. So then we go to Los Angeles and we play this big, it was actually an awards show, a music awards show. And we were finally dealing with people who were a little bit higher up on the food chain than, you know, the local promoters who we were so frustrated with. And as we played that show, and as that show happened and we dealt with those guys, we all just had a terrible feeling. And an understanding that this is not where we want to be, because, you know, kind of the cliches of the rock star life and the music industry, that was right there in front of us on display, and dealing with people who we knew didn't have our best interest at heart. And so we left that show, and, you know, I was really, really reflective on it. You know, this had been my dream since I was 12 years old, and here I was, probably 28, 29, I can't remember, without another thought for any type of career. And here we were thinking about calling it quits, and eventually we did, after a lot of prayer and understanding that this was just not what the Lord wanted for us. And that kicked off this whole new learning experience for me. because it's not an easy thing when, you know, your heartfelt dreams, and not just idle dreams, like the work that was put in to making the band go and making the band big, that level of work is just astronomical. And then that all just, you know, at the time it felt like, man, what a waste. And like, what do I do with this talent that I've been given? Was, you know, was this all, you know, I was picking, like, here's the blessings I received from this. You know, I met my wife, my kids wouldn't exist without pursuing this dream. And so at that point I had this thought, like, well, maybe that was the end goal. Like, that's what the Lord wanted me to do. And now it's time to figure something else out. And I didn't know what that was going to be at the time. So that was a little bit of the downfall of that original dream.
Yeah. So just to backtrack a little bit, through that period of time when you were, you know, pushing the band and trying to get things happening there, was that your full-time gig? You didn't have a side job to sort of keep the money?
No way. There's no money in the music industry, or that's at least where we were. So, you know, I was working for a bank. I'm still working for that bank, actually. And so just trying to put food on the table. And so that was, you know, you'd come home from your job and then it's practice time and then it's promotion time. And how do we find a studio that we can record in? So that was all extracurricular, because, you know, especially in that first bit, where there really is no money. And that was one of the things that got frustrating too, because we'd play these shows and, you know, we're selling $10 tickets and the promoter takes $7 and didn't do any promoting for us. So we're like, so, and, you know, we just dealt with all of that. And yeah, no money. My wife is a total saint, knowing that, like, all of my extra time was going into the band and trying to make that happen.
Mm. I'm gathering your wife was very supportive of this. She was obviously very interested in music. You met her in a studio. Tell me, was your wife a member of the church, or did you bring her along to church?
Nope, she's a lifelong member as well. So,
Okay.
and she's got a pioneer heritage as well. So, very, very blessed to have stumbled upon her.
Okay. So that's awesome that she was so supportive. But
Yeah.
you know, reaching that point with and coming to a fairly quick agreement with your brothers, and I haven't got the exact details there, but one or two of your brothers were in the band, and anyone else? Were you all church members?
Yeah. So my older brother was our bass player. My younger brother was our drummer. I've got another older brother who was not in the band, but two of my three brothers were in there. And then my best friend growing up from middle school was along for the ride as well. And yeah, we were all members of the church. So, you know, our hope was because we knew, or we thought we knew, what we were getting into. We knew that the music industry, as far as the worldly music industry, there's a lot of darkness there. You know, we're very familiar with the modern music and the messages that they share, and that are unsavory, you know. And our hope was to be a light in that industry, to be able to say, you know what, we want people to be able to come to our shows and realize what it is to have this special light of the gospel. And so we all had that thought. And, you know, again, the Lord's will always wins out, because, you know, I look back on it now, and hindsight's so much better than when you're in the moment. But I can see now some of those things where I think that form of the music industry could have put our souls at risk, honestly, because we thought we were basically impervious to, you know, the major temptations of rock stars. You know, we're like, oh, we're not like that. But there's so many other subtle things that could have been our downfall. And so looking back on it now, it's easier to appreciate the Lord saying, I know you wanted this for a long time. This is not for you, you know. But at first, it was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you're all very perceptive to those feelings, and it was a pretty unanimous decision by the sound of it that
Yeah.
it just wasn't for you. You know, the Lord blessed you enough to get you in a position where you could make a decision to say, no, not us, you know.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
you know, and you know, looking back, I'm sure you think that was a pretty wise decision. And we've all seen, and even in fairly recent times, some, you know, reasonably high profile LDS performers that have fallen away, you know, and you know, have had some success in the music industry, and sadly aren't with us anymore. In a way, you know, they're you know, obviously not as faithful as they once were, and some are even, you know, speaking against against the church for various reasons. We won't go into that, but maybe another time. But yeah, so that was pretty interesting. So you sort of quit the music business.
Yep.
And concentrate on family and your bank job. How long did it take before you had this creative burst that's come into your life recently with your Speaking from the Dust series of songs and books, which is quite a unique sort of concept to come up with. So, you know, was that a number of years ago that you sort of finished with the band and all that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was about 4 or 5 years that I kind of refer to it as like my divorced from music era, because, you know, I still loved to play, I loved to listen, but there was a little bit of pain associated with continuing to play, and so I didn't write a lot because, you know, I had these thoughts of like, well, what's the point? You know, that's past me, you know, so I distanced myself a little bit from music. And, you know, maybe not the best decision in the world, but it did help me to focus on becoming a little bit more well-rounded, trying to put the pieces back together, I think that process has also helped my conversion. Really relying on the Lord and saying, you know what? I had this plan and now it's all gone to heck. I really need to understand what the Lord wants for me. You know, so that period, though it was tough, was really, really important. So, but I would still, you know, I couldn't go more than a couple of days without playing the piano, and I would play around with some licks and some melodies. I would record on my phone and say, you know what, I'll save that for later whenever I'm feeling up for it. But it was about 4 or 5 years before I started really kind of getting back into it with this project.
Yeah. And something I didn't ask you about your earlier music career, I'm assuming you were writing songs, you were doing original songs as a band back then?
Yeah.
So the writing of songs is not a new thing to you. It's something you had a foundation with from your earlier music career. So that's come along with you now.
Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, just, you know, compare yourself now with the 21-year-old returned missionary.
I don't know about that comparison. You know, I hope the difference between me and return missionary Kyle is that I'm man, that's a good question. I hope I'm a little less reactionary. You know, as I tried to control things to fit exactly what my plan was, you know, if anything were to, you know, get me off course or anything seemed to be a stumbling block on that course, I would attack it, you know, not actually attack it, but I'd be like, no. You know, I would react and say, this is not good, we're not going to do that. Or this is good, we have to do this. You know, I dealt a lot in absolutes because this was my plan and I would not deviate from it. And I still have a little bit of that in me where I'm like, oh, this is the schedule, this is the course, you know, but now I trust, I think, I trust the Lord a lot more to say, you know, if if I need to make a diversion here, I know that the Lord has my best interest at heart. And so I trust that a lot more. And I understand that for me, the Lord has given me music not for my own glory and not for its own purposes, just to exist so that I can feel awesome about myself. It's a tool that he's given me to be able to spread the gospel. And we've all been given tools, talents, and you know, missions on earth that the Lord has given us. And when I've kind of taken my music down a peg as far as its importance for me personally, it's exploded in eternal significance for me, because I have felt, okay, this is a tool, and I've been wanting to embrace more tools, even if it's not music. So writing those books, that's another tool. Public speaking, that's another tool. And so I've been a lot more malleable in the Lord's hands. By no means am I perfect at that. I still have that natural tendency to want to do things my way, but I think that's probably the biggest difference between me now and when I came home from my mission.
Yeah. Okay, that's really interesting. Look, I'm guessing somewhere around 20 to 25 years older than you.
Yeah.
By your dad's taste in music, I'm probably almost exactly the same age as your dad, I would say.
Yeah, maybe.
And I can tell you that, you know, the conversion process is certainly a lifelong process.
Yeah.
And in 20 years' time, you're going to look back on where you were 20 years ago and think, yeah, I've changed a little bit. I've perhaps mellowed a little bit or whatever, you know. I'm still very much trying to change certain aspects of my personality that I sort of cringe at every now and then, you know.
Well, and it's funny,
you know,
because when you're young, and I see this with the youth a lot as well, we think that like change is such this bad thing, you know, and I remember feeling that, like, oh, I don't want to change this part about my personality. And now I'm like, I want to change. I want to change, you know, anything I can. And, you know, there's a few things that the world pushes on us. You know, just the phrase, like, you do you. Like, that phrase bugs me so much, because I'm like, okay, I know what you mean by that. Like, hey, embrace who you are. But we have to change. Like, our whole life is supposed to be moldable. And I remember being so afraid of that earlier. And now, you know, I hope I can look back 20 years from now and say, oh yeah, I've progressed way more than when I was 38.
Yeah, that's right. So, Kyle, look, I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what you've created now, and try and get that concept across to us all about what you've created and how that's going. Yeah,
absolutely. So a couple of years back, again, you know, I was still dabbling, you know, and, you know, still playing music, just recreationally. A couple of years back, my stake put on a youth conference event called Moroni's Quest. And it's basically like a trek. You know, we do that here. I don't know if they do that in Australia, but we do a trek where they pull the hand carts and everything. This was going to be a week-long deal where the youth were able to reenact scenes from the Book of Mormon. And, you know, to really just try to get themselves into it. And my stake asked me to perform at this big kickoff fireside. The whole stake was going to be involved, and they really wanted to kind of kick this off. And so I tried to put a couple of hymns together, and it just wasn't working. So I asked if I could write a song, and they said, yep. And it was the first time that I'd really been like, I really want to write a song here. It kind of lit that fire again. And what I did is I approached it and saying, like, okay, I'm Moroni burying the plates. What am I feeling when I do that, right? And so I wanted to really get into his shoes, because the whole purpose of this Moroni's Quest was so that the kids can liken themselves unto these scriptures. So I'm like, well, what was Moroni feeling? And so I got into that mode. He's putting these plates in the ground. And what were these plates to him? What did they mean to him? you know? And I realized, like, okay, in these plates, the history of his people, the prophecies of the Savior, the restoration hinges upon these plates, and he knew the prophecies there. And not only that, these plates were likely his only friend in the world. You know, he's running from the Lamanites, and certainly the words on these plates brought him comfort and brought him peace. And here he is burying those plates in the ground to never see him again. And what was that feeling? What did that feel like? And so when I tapped into that, this song came out that it was a writing experience. Because I've been writing songs since I was 15, and some have been really neat and some have been awful. But this was a writing experience that I had never had before. And it was the first time that I actually felt that the song already existed somewhere and was given to me to get it out here on the earth. And I know that's kind of I don't mean to be so mystic, but that's how it felt. I was like, oh, this song already exists. And so I wrote it, and that was a life-changing experience for me. And I performed it at that stake function, and it got a lot of really good feedback. But a couple of weeks later, one of the youth from our stake came up to me and said, "You're Brother Jacobs, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she said, "I want to thank you for writing that song." She said, I was not going to go to this youth conference. I didn't want to spend a week up in the mountains pretending like I was a Nephite. That was the last thing I wanted to do. And she said, but then I heard your song, and now I cannot wait to go. I cannot wait to experience all this. And for me, that was the highlight of my entire music career, where I had played in front of hundreds of people and all the applause and all this thing. That right there was everything. And so I decided, I was like, we need a whole album of songs like this, where I'm tapping into these Book of Mormon heroes and trying to relate to them ultimately. And so that's what Speaking from the Dust is. It's an album that I've written. It's 14 songs, 13 of which are from the perspective of Book of Mormon heroes. The opening number, the title track, Speaking from the Dust, is the perspective of somebody who's opening the Book of Mormon for the first time. But everything else, you know, we've got Sam, the brother of Nephi, represented. We've got Abish on here, Mormon. I also wanted to look at folks who you wouldn't think about that are in the Book of Mormon. So you think about, you know, Captain Moroni, and he's this huge hero, and love him. But, you know, in those first few battles with the Lamanites, the thing that sets the Nephites apart is their armor and their shields and the helmets and their weapons. And I was like, there's a blacksmith out there who had to make all of that, you know? So I'm like, I want to write a song about him. And so one of the songs is called The Blacksmith. And so this whole album has been in that same type of mindset as that first song of these people are human beings, and we have to learn how to connect with them and how to relate to them, because what happens at that point is if we can see ourselves in them, then their problems we can see in us, and their solutions we can emulate. And the solution obviously is the Savior and his gospel. And so we can see, okay, Alma the Younger was this prophet, and he was amazing, but he was a victim of bullying. He got bullied in the city of Ammonihah, got kicked out, right? And so what got him back? How did he overcome that? You know, so in my mind's eye, I was thinking, you know, there's some kid out there in high school getting bullied right now, and he doesn't even realize that there's a solution for him. And Alma the Younger, his story will lead him to that solution. What did Alma do? Well, he went right back at it, got with Amulek, and some of the greatest doctrine in the history of the world comes after he was the victim of bullying. So I really tried to channel all of that with all these songs. And as I did so, I you know, as I was working with other people as well, just as far as like the music business is concerned, you know, how do I promote this, you know, producers and things like that. I also had the thought, like, you know, these songs are 3-4 minutes long. I've got so much more to say about these things. And so I decided to write a book. as well that goes hand in hand with these songs. And I'm releasing each song and each chapter of the book basically a month at a time. And the book series is called Connecting to Courage, and it dives into a little bit deeper the lessons that we learned from the song in the album. So, for example, the song Follow is from the perspective of Sam, the brother of Nephi. And what I gleaned from that was a very personal experience of, I don't know 42 steps in front of me. All I know is the next step I need to take, and so that connects with me.
I think this is a really good point where we won't do it live, but we'll insert this in now. We'll play Follow. So those of you who are watching this interview live, when the interview's over, if you could go to Spotify, that's probably the best place to go.
Yeah.
And just search for Brother Jacob's Jams in Spotify, and you'll find the song Follow, which we'll talk a little bit about now.
Yeah.
I just listened to this song yesterday. I hadn't listened. Oh, yeah, I had listened to it before, but I was listening to the lyrics a little bit more intently yesterday. I'm thinking, who is singing this song? And I realized, oh, it's Sam.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sam is one of those characters in First and Second Nephi that we really don't get to hear much about.
Right.
His Nephi's supportive older brother, but that's all we really know about him.
Mm-hmm.
So, tell us a little bit more about how you sort of, how you felt writing that song and some of the things you write in your book. And look, I meant to say prior to the interview, if you've got a copy of the book there, do you want to read us a passage out of the book perhaps it relates to?
Oh, I wish I did. My book is all digital. I'm working on the actual physical copy, and then I'll open it up and
Okay.
A wise old father read passages. But yeah, if you go to Amazon and go to Connecting to Courage by Kyle C. Jacobs, you'll see the books there. And so and the book expounds on this a lot. With Sam, I've always been drawn to him because you're right. He's supportive. And he doesn't get a lot of love. Nephi is amazing, of course. But I wanted to think, what was Sam's story? And really what I did is really kind of generalize the story of Lehi's whole family. And that is, you're leaving Jerusalem and you have no idea where you're going. And you're trusting the Lord one step at a time. And I think the reason why I really connected with Sam on this one is because, at least from what we can see in the scriptures, it doesn't appear that Sam received any vision of the promised land. It doesn't appear that he was a prophet. So Nephi and Lehi both see these amazing visions, which I imagine, it doesn't make things easy, but I imagine that helps. That's something for them to hold on to say, you know what? We're going through this awful journey that is never ending, but we know what's at the end. And my assumption in writing this song is that Sam didn't know. Sam was just trusting. And so that's where, again, it kind of ties back to my own personal experience of when my band fell and not knowing what to do. And I just decided I needed to trust the Lord. And it's frustrating when you can only see one step at a time. And so I tried to kind of marry that. I'm like, you know what? This example in my life, Sam has felt that. So it was an easy connection for me to make. And just the fact, I just don't think Sam gets enough love. So I love the song. And the book goes into that. And it goes into this story of me. I eventually went back to college after I quit the band, went through the pathway program through the church. And again, to this day, I don't know why, but the Lord made it very clear to me, you need to do this. And I'm like, okay, I will, and there's a lot of things that I've learned from it, but there hasn't been this thing of like, oh, this was the prize at the end of the road. I haven't experienced that yet from going to school. So trusting the Lord was really the main lesson in the song and in the book and in my life.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Look, it's hard to get too much education.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I think it's valuable. And you know, if I look back on my life, I think, you know, is there any regrets I have? I think, yeah, probably not getting as much education as I could have is probably one thing that I, you know, would look back and say, gee, I wish I had done this or done that. But anyway, you know, we are where we are in life, and it's hard. Well, it's impossible to wind back the clock, but we can always look forward and do our best in the future, you know. And
Yeah.
you know, I'm 65 now. I'm looking at you know, I look at my time schedule. I think, well, I've probably got another 20 years while I'm still, you know, reasonably fit and healthy, and hopefully, you know, still got some sort of mind left to do something with, you know. So you sort of look ahead, and you can look back and learn from it, and just move on, you know, and hope that you make some good decisions in the future, and you make the most of your time for sure. So I'm just thinking about what we've covered and what we haven't covered from our plan. I mean, as I said to you in the email, you know, it's good to have a plan and follow the plan. But I knew you and I would.
Yeah, we could talk for hours. That's obvious.
Absolutely. I'd love to meet your dad one day too. I'm guessing, and of course your mum. But you know, something that's very obvious, Kyle, as I look at your posts on Instagram and listen to your music and what you're doing, is that you have a pretty strong testimony of the restored gospel.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, absolutely.
And you know, it's foundational in your life.
Yeah, that is. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I was going to say that it really is the guiding light for me. You know, and like I said early on, I sometimes look back and think, man, if I could serve my mission again, I wouldn't want to go back in time, but I would want to have all the experiences that I have now and the testimony that I have now and serve again, so that just so that I could get the message out, you know. And to me, I think that's one of the things about the gospel. It's kind of a funny thing to say, but it's one of the proofs to me that the gospel is true, because I think it's kind of rare that a missionary would go out with all of this light and knowledge and have just the absolute perfect Alma the Younger type of experience. I suspect a lot of missionaries go out like I did. And, you know, we're only 18, 19 years old, and the church keeps going forward. And it's because the Spirit is there. And I cherish my missionary experiences, but I really wish I could go back. I'm looking forward. Me and my wife have talked about serving a mission in retirement, and we just cannot wait to do that. That's going to be so great, because you know, during this time in my life when I was not in the band, trying to figure out what to do, I had this epiphany that, and I don't mean to sound cynical here, but to me, the thought came that nothing else matters except for the gospel. And the second half of that is, if what you're doing can be tied to the gospel, then it matters, right? So that doesn't mean that, like, oh, the only thing that's worthwhile is to sit at home and read your scriptures all day and then go to church on Sunday. Like, no, we can still have passion. We can still have all these things. But if we tie it to the gospel, then it becomes meaningful. So my music wasn't meaningful until I tied it to the gospel. Then it became a service, and what I hope to be a service to others, as opposed to just, this is fun and I like it, right? And so, you know, as I've spoken with the youth, I've kind of tried to hit that home as well. You know, they all love football. I love football. But I remember a time when I would not do my home teaching because I wanted to stay home and watch the game. And I hope to get the message across, like, no, that's not the way. You know, the gospel allows for us to have those passions, but the prioritization has got to be there. So I absolutely love the Book of Mormon. I know it's true. And this album that I've written has been such an experience, a testimony building experience for me to write it, that I hope as many people can listen to it as possible, because even if just one person listens to it and has that same connection to the Book of Mormon that I received when I wrote it, man, mission accomplished right there. You know, and in turn, the Book of Mormon is the great converting tool. You know, my love for the prophet Joseph has grown exponentially, for the leaders of the church now. You know, and it all points to the Savior. So I'm really grateful that I've been able to, you know, hone my talents for a number of years, and that I finally opened myself up to say the gospel is the top priority. God, your will is it for me. Now, what do you want me to do? And I just imagine him, and I've had these experiences where he's like, you know what to do. I gave you these tools. Now go and do it. You know, and that's where really speaking from the dust comes from. It's a result. It is my missionary efforts now. I can't go back and serve in Las Vegas like I did, but I can still be a missionary, and I can use this music. I can use my books as a tool. And who knows? Maybe the Lord will give me more tools in the future. I'm excited to find out.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much, Kyle. You know, as you were saying that, I neglected to say at the start, and you know, for some of your followers who are watching now and will watch in the future, as you said, that you're looking forward to serving as a missionary with your wife. That is what my wife and I are currently doing. I can tell you, it's pretty much nothing like being a young missionary.
I bet.
I mean, you know, there are aspects of it, of course, that are similar, and we get to spend a fair bit of time with the young missionaries in helping them. But, you know, you get to use your talents. So I can honestly say that one of the funny things about my mission is that, and there is an interview with me, I was on the Family Bro Evening podcast, and they interviewed me, entitled it Elder Ceff, the Kite Surfing Missionary.
Yeah.
So I am different as a missionary. I go kite surfing once or twice, or maybe sometimes 3 times a week. But the best friends I've made here in Cairns, in Australia, or some of the best friends I've made, are my fellow kite surfers that I spend time with out at the beach. You know, so people would stop and say, "Oh, but you're going kite surfing again?" Yes. And I wear my name tag at the beach, you know, shorts and t-shirt and name tag. I don't actually wear my name tag when I'm in the water, because I don't want to lose it while I'm out there when I have a crash, which is, you know, quite likely to happen.
Right.
So, you know, we use our talents, and I'm sure by the time you're a senior missionary, who knows where your musical talents will go, and your writing talents as well. I mean, I've got to say, you know, I've downloaded your books from Amazon, and you're not only a very talented musician, you are a great writer as well. And obviously, you know, your books are aimed at youth, but, you know, don't any adult readers discount that and say, oh, that's aimed for the youth. You know, you've just got a great writing style.
Yeah.
You use language that the youth are going to connect with well. You know, you can tell that you know, have a real connection with the youth. So I would encourage everyone listening to go to Spotify and listen to Kyle's music. I guess iTunes as well, and probably some other platforms, Kyle.
Yeah.
And Amazon for the books. You know, the title of the book series again, Kyle, is
Connecting to Courage.
Connecting to Courage, and that, that's a great title. That's what we all need. We all need to connect to courage.
Yeah.
So Kyle, look, it's just been a joy spending a bit of time with you now. We'll probably use one of your songs on the outtake. I usually use the instrumental version of a hymn, but we're going to get things pumping a bit today. I've got to say, the music is sort of, it's a sort of music that people of my generation, I love your songs. You're a great songwriter. There's always a good hook. I'll listen to a song 2 or 3 times, and I'm walking around for a couple of days with that song going around in my brain. So they're great songs. You've got a great talent there. So keep it up. We're looking forward to hear more. And look, I think we should do another interview sometime. I'm not sure when.
Yeah. Before you leave on your mission, before you go home, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I appreciate what you're doing.
That's great. I'm going to continue when I go home. Don't worry. This is something that's going to keep on going.
All right. Well, good.
Thanks again for your time, Kyle. It's been fantastic.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All the best. Thank you.
All right.
Bye for now.